So, Charlie, do you accept the View's apology?
I mean, regardless of whether or not I accept it, the question is, do our students accept it? That's really what's at heart here. They went after our 5,000 students at our event there of high school and college kids. And look, I get attacked all the time. People say false things. I'm a public figure. But when you go after 16 and 17-year-olds that travel from across the country that then have to live for the rest of their life with a shadow over them because someone at ABC says that they might be linked to neo-Nazis. But look, what did it take for us to get to the point of an apology? We had to threaten a lawsuit, Jesse. And by the way, we're still entertaining it. We're talking to some of the best lawyers out there that are experts in this. And as you know, these things can be very complicated. There's a lot of facts and circumstances around it.
What exactly does it take for one of daytime television's most powerful and opinionated talk programs to deliver a public on-air apology? A moment of televised repentance aired to millions.
But we're not going to let this go because you should not be able to smear 5,000 high school and college kids and then just be able to walk away with it. And the reason they felt they needed to do that, Jesse, is because if they told their audience the truth, that when gas is the most expensive it's been, flights are super expensive, that 5,000 kids decided to spend a weekend in summer traveling across the country to go hear from conservative speakers, maybe the audience of The View would think twice about all of their ideas. That's why they felt so compelled to try to smear our wonderful summit this last week.
And, perhaps most amazingly, what happens when a well-written apology is insufficient to defuse a legal time bomb? A possible $100 million missile pointed straight at its reputation and finances.
Kirk took issue with this depiction of his organization. Kirk maintains that Turning Point USA is not affiliated with anti-Semitism or white supremacist. In a strongly worded tweet, the 28-year-old stated, "Talking to lawyers, many think we have a strong case. You cannot smear minors as and get away with it. It impacts them for the rest of their life. Hashtag sue the View." That's when TPUSA went all in. The organization changed its profile pic on Twitter to hashtag sue the View, posted a number of tweets condemning The View and demanding an apology.
It was the starting point for a massive conflict. A conflict that exposed layers of media dynamics, public perception, and the startlingly high stakes of words expressed in public spaces.
Nothing else to talk about. Maybe you should get the lawyer that worked on that Covington Catholic school case. What was that, a $200 million settlement? I think, Charlie, you could use the money, and your students definitely could too.
The spark that lit this conflagration flared during a Bayholabraseth discussion on The View, a program known for its hosts' candid opinions. Sunny Hostin, a renowned speaker with a legal background, made statements that reverberated across the internet landscape.
We begin with a shocking apology just a short time ago from the ladies of The View to Turning Point USA. A war of words broke out after the conservative group was rallying the next generation of voters at its youth summit in Tampa, Florida this weekend. And the liberal panel just couldn't help themselves. The group sent a scathing cease and desist letter after hosts on The View suggested that Turning Point had embraced neo-Nazis who showed up outside the event.
During this exchange, the now famous Dragon statement emerged. Hostin declared with apparent confidence that Rogan believed in dragons, citing this as proof of his unreliability or poor judgment.
Turning Point conference, were in the front of turning out there in front of the conference with anti-Semitic slurs, and the.
I think it's important that every single person that attended that Turning Point, every Republican speak up against these against the Nazi flags that were.
The moment was a classic example of bold commentary made with conviction to strengthen an argument. However, these were not casual comments. They were verbal missiles fired into a media environment far broader and more volatile than expected.
On Monday, we talked about the fact that there were openly demonstrators outside the Florida Student Action Summit of the Turning Point USA group. We want to make clear that these demonstrators were gathered outside the event and that they were not invited or endorsed by Turning Point USA. A Turning Point USA spokesman said the group, quote, 100% condemns those ideologies, and said Turning Point USA security tried to remove the neo-Nazis from the area but could not because they were on public property. Also, Turning Point USA wanted us to clarify that this was a Turning Point USA summit and not a Republican Party event. So we apologize for anything we said that may have been unclear on these points.
Joe Rogan responded swiftly, delivering his rebuttal not via a press release, but from his own podcast studio, where he commands a multi-million-strong audience. He addressed the accusation head-on.
Welcome back. In Monday's conversation about Turning Point USA, I put the young people at the conference in the same category as the protesters outside. And I don't like it when people make assumptions about me. And it's not any better when I make assumptions about other people, which I did. So, my bad. I'm sorry.
Okay.
So, the state, the U.S.
Over the weekend, Turning Point USA hosted a riveting event in Tampa, Florida called the Student Action Summit. Outside of the event were individuals waving flags and engaged in other activities. Well, on Monday's show, members of The View made a few comments about it.
The conservative group Turning Point USA has condemned the group of neo-Nazis and said they have nothing to do with the organization.
Yeah, but where was DeSantis is what I want to know.
But you let them in.
President, open your
You let them in and you knew what they were.
Right.
So you are complicit.
He methodically dismantled the dragon claim, explaining its origin and referencing a discussion with wildlife researcher Forrest Galante about large undiscovered reptiles and the historical context of dragon. Mythology in relation to real-world animal encounters.
Her disgusting, gross elitism and her complete out-of-touch nature with respect to the rest of the world. Sunny Hostin goes on The View and decides now would be a great time to dump all over the so-called uneducated.
What we did not have is white women who voted about 52%, right, for Donald Trump. Uneducated white women, is my understanding. You have Latino men, actually, voting more for him. And you have, and black men was not the story. We're not the story here because they voted almost 80% for the vice president.
Right.
Just because you didn't go to college doesn't mean you're stupid, and it doesn't mean that you don't have wisdom. You can go to college and get a bunch of irrelevant facts about how men can allegedly give birth or whatever they teach.
But his response didn't stop at clarification. The tone shifted from defensive explanation to offensive maneuver. Rogan and his formidable legal team concluded that a verbal rebuttal wasn't enough.
Achievements. How do you like the so-called uneducated now, Sonny?
Yeah, and again, by the way, rarely do you get the answer to a question in the question. And her whole question is exactly why there was a rebellion against them.
Yes.
Listen, just because you didn't go to college doesn't mean you're stupid, and it doesn't mean that you don't have wisdom. I always differentiate between knowledge and wisdom. You can go to college and get a bunch of irrelevant facts about how men can allegedly give birth or whatever they teach. I mean, or about North African lesbian poetry. Okay, that's fine, I guess.
They escalated the matter dramatically, filing a $100 million lawsuit. This move signaled that Rogan believed a line had been crossed, from criticism into defamation. The court documents filed on Rogan's behalf underscored the gravity of the accusation. The $100 million figure was no exaggeration. It represented the perceived damage, particularly with emphasis on defamation.
The point I'll say is this, is Sunny, you guys thought that abortion was going to be this like quasi-zealot religious issue. I'm pro-life. If people in the audience aren't, that's fine. What I'm saying though, what gives me promise, and I think we can all agree on this, is that there are other issues that should animate and drive our politics other than this very divisive one. And I was really encouraged by that, Megan. Very encouraged, because the media was forcing this as an up or down vote on a referendum on a highly complicated, very emotional, very personal issue. And it turned out the American people were like, yeah, actually, these other 6 things matter more.
Rogan's team argued that the statements on The View, portraying him as a spreader of misinformation and citing the dragon, were false and had a demonstrable negative impact, potentially jeopardizing relationships like his Spotify deal and damaging his professional reputation. This wasn't framed as a case of hurt feelings. Given the national exposure, it was cast as a deliberate attack with serious professional and financial consequences that warranted major restitution. With the legal documents officially served, and the staggering amount attached, all eyes turned to The View for their trademark vocal reaction. What came next, however, spoke volumes. In the immediate wake of the lawsuit's announcement, a surprising quiet settled over the typically fiery tone of the show, especially from Sunny Hostin. It was a sharp departure from their usual stance. That silence became a story of its own. While legal teams likely scrambled behind the scenes, the court of public opinion took off online with explosive energy, powered by Rogan's massive reach. Memes about dragons and lawsuits spread like wildfire. Social media buzzed with debates and video essays, most rallying behind Rogan's side and interpreting The View's silence as strategic retreat. The lack of an early counterattack was filled with a chorus of internet voices. Many concluded that the daytime talk show had finally picked a battle it couldn't easily win with its traditional methods. Though official statements remained scarce, the war over public perception raged online, driven by the stark contrast in how each side controls its narrative. Rogan's podcast is a digital juggernaut that allows for long-form, uncensored communication. The View, as a daily staple, follows a tight broadcast format, built on rapid segments. This difference became more obvious as Rogan spent hours laying out his perspective, dominating the narrative cycle. But this high-stakes showdown went far, beyond the individuals involved. It cast a spotlight on deeper, ongoing shifts and cracks in the modern media landscape, making it a potent case study. This wasn't just about dragons or dollars. It was a symbolic clash mirroring a broader cultural reckoning, where legacy media powerhouses are being challenged by decentralized voices commanding vast digital territories. Regardless of the lawsuit's final legal outcome, the impact is already undeniable. It has revealed the true weight of words, the shifting media power structure, and the cost of public accusations. The echoes of the dragon's roar and that 9-figure lawsuit aren't fading anytime soon. So what do you think? Drop your thoughts in the comments section below. And if you don't want to miss out on the hottest celebrity news, make sure to subscribe to Daily Finder.